What's shaking and baking, all you hip, cool cats? My name is Kit, and welcome one and all to Chicago Reacts. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification. That way, all of you are made aware when we upload new content onto our YouTube channel. And today we got ourselves a fun video to react to, and it's something close to my heart. Let us go skyward. Skyward. No, I'm not talking about Tears of the Kingdom. I've been playing that game. It's really addicting. But more on that for another time. We're actually talking about another game that takes place in the sky. BioShock Infinite. And this is Firearms expert reacts to BioShock Infinite's guns. So I have played the BioShock trilogy. Outstanding game for its time. It will be missed. I know that the company that owned it did go belly up, but we could still go back and reminisce about BioShock. So grab yourself a tasty snack and a tasty beverage. And as always, all the original links to all the videos that we react to are in the description box below. So for this video, please do support the original content creators. But without further ado, since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's get ready to check this video out. Firearms expert reacts to BioShock Infinite's guns. And by the way, some of those weapons do have some hell of a stopping power. My personal favorite is the shotgun, though. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and pull this video up in a 3, a 2, a 1.
Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And this week we've got the follow-up to our time in Rapture by soaring up to the sky in the vast world of Columbia in BioShock Infinite.
Oh, I do like Murder of Crows. Good fun. I'd like to be able to do that in real life.
Summon crows.
Yeah. To attack people, specifically. Right.
Let us know what other games or guns you'd like to see Jonathan break down, and be sure to subscribe for more Firearms Expert Reacts, as well as videos from several of our other experts. Right, over to Jonathan.
Go!
Now this is, although stylized pretty clearly, a Mauser C96, sometimes called the broom handle, for this reason. I've chosen it because it looked quite sort of war weary and some nice sort of patina on it, and I don't know, it seemed to fit the game. But the version we have here is the sort of special edition with gold and decoration on it. So we have a really good collection of C96s here, but don't have any gold plated or gold damascened ones, unfortunately. So this will have to do. But it has the short barrel and has the full size frame, which is what I'm seeing here and what I remember playing when I played this game. Incidentally, I did write a small book on the C96 if you're interested. It's an Osprey book. So Mauser knew about detachable magazines, of course, and they looked at incorporating one early on in the 20th century. Didn't do it in the end until the model 1930, which is the sort of product improved redesign of the whole family, and it added the push button on the side of the frame and a detachable box magazine. But the game version, I mean, it has a lot of the lines are there. Most of the lines are there. The proportions, the cutout shape of the ejection port area, the extractor on top of the bolt is there. The way it operates with the hammer, square section bolts, it's basically all there. It's rapid fire. It's relatively powerful for a pistol, just as the real thing was. Celebrated in its day for penetration that the 7.63x25 cartridge could deliver. And
You know, seeing its real life counterpart, though, obviously, because let's face it, sometimes, you know, especially throughout most of gaming history, sometimes weapons were not created or recreated properly or as real as their real life counterpart. I think there's been a lot of gaming studios that have been dedicating their time and their creative teams to making sure everything is authentic in firearm video games. But seeing the real life counterpart, I mean, it's you see the power that it has, especially for back in its time, being a weapon to take out, well, the threat that was threatening you. So there you go. It's interesting though. Personally though, and probably there are people who can mod the game already. I would like to see the real life version in the game than this golden version.
10 shots as well. 10 shots when revolvers were still the standard with 6 shots. So not quite a world beater, but a trailblazer, I think we can say. Fits the aesthetic of BioShock Infinite absolutely perfectly. I would have gone with this as well. They did look at the Luger. I remember seeing the concept art for that, and they were looking at a stylized Luger when they went with the stylized broom handle, and I'm glad that they did. As far as shooting goes, in the virtual version, it pretty much works as it ought to. The sights are a bit exaggerated. So here we've got one missing at the front, and we've got a normal height rear sight. Quite typical early 20th century or late 19th century sights. Very, very small thing inside a very, very small thing.
You know, that cult, especially when you get that murder crow elixir, they remind me of the witch's cult from ReZero, starting life in another world. The notorious, nefarious sloth. God, man, that cult is insane.
Very hard to be accurate with that unless you're really taking your time. The game sights are almost the other way. They're almost like suppressor height. They have a really big Winchester buckhorn style on a rifle rear sight and a very tall front sight. The big departure, I guess, is the lever on the side here, which is thumb operated, and it throws the magazine clear. So even with the detachable magazine broom handles, you have to press the button and pull out the detachable magazine. With this thing, it's in a way a little bit sci-fi because you've got a lever you hit and it chucks out the magazine, so you could be doing like a tactical reload with the thing. On the downside, it makes the gun bulkier, a little bit heavier, and perhaps reliability. Probably not. All very speculative, but it's nice to see a broom handle, even if it's a sort of fantasy version.
Very good. Yeah, there you go. I love that one.
Now, this is relatively unusual because I don't have to speculate what this submachine gun is based upon. I remember back in the day playing this and not really being sure and thinking it was completely made up. Well, I know better, thanks to the concept art that was released for the game, because there's no argument over this. This is the check.
Isn't that great? Not only do we have an expert talk about, but they've played the game too. Good times we live in. I mean, yes, we all know that the world is ending, but sometimes you find little gems like this, and it once again reignites hope in your heart. But then that hope disappears because the world is bombarded with absolute BS.
ZK383 submachine gun. And what's really, really exciting about it in terms of, well, from an art and a design perspective, even if it might irk the purists amongst us, but this is a parallel reality, right? So you can see the design process they went through, turning it from essentially a pretty faithful ZK383, so long, slim barrel shroud. The magazine actually angles upward. So it's an unusual design in that respect. Not only did they make the barrel shroud short, squat, and fat, change the proportions of just about everything. The cocking handle's still on the left side, but it's higher up. It's more of a early Sten style knob on there. They actually canted the magazine housing substantially downward, so they reversed this arrangement and then exaggerated it even more, which gives you more of a field of view, I suppose, and it makes it a very distinctive alternative history sort of design. So I can't really argue with that. As much as I like my guns to be historically accurate, there's not really any need for that in this game. Now the real one has this really quite unusual bipod arrangement. Bipods on submachine gun are not very common for obvious reasons. This one has one built in. Now that didn't make it through to the final design, but I wanted to show you that. This one has a sling on it, which is unusual and nice to have. And this is a Venezuelan contract.
You know what I would like to have seen, though? And I don't think we're going to get this in this video, though. And that is the actual weapons being fired. Like, I guess, and to be clear here, these are some very old firearms, so there's probably a lot of technical issues and durability that must be called into question because, you know, who's to say that the weapon won't fall apart or there won't be some kind of massive failure. But it would like to, I would like to at least see the weapons in action as they're shooting at targets or something like that. It would be a nice little thing to see.
Example. So it has the Venezuelan crest, nice markings, it's in great condition. Now you can see if you're thinking, wow, they've changed it so much, it's not a ZK3A3. Well, as well as configuration things like the rear sight base being on top of the magazine housing, which is preserved, and the general sort of appearance is still there. It's almost like a caricature version. The magazine housing and this very long magazine catch is basically still the same. The short magazine is sort of retained. In the game, it's got a 16 round capacity, which looks about right for how short it is in the game. You probably don't want to be holding it by the magazine, but I think with this design, that would be unlikely to cause you any issues.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Madness and mayhem and rapture.
There are actually two variants of this gun, which I'd completely forgotten. Generally very similar. The sights are different, the cocking handle's different, the rate of fire is noticeably slower. One very strange thing about this, and I guess it's because the drum magazine is meant to be a visual difference rather than a technical difference, but typically drum magazines are bigger, well, at least are bigger than box magazines. That's the whole reason for having them, is that they can contain more rounds. But here, this variant of the gun has a smaller capacity despite having the visibly larger magazine, so that's curious. That might actually be an error, I don't know.
The shotgun. Love it. Oh, wait, it's probably not a shotgun.
The good old Winchester 1887, or at least a parallel version of it. Again, recognizably the real world firearm, and suits the sort of retro futuristic setting very nicely. Well, it has a long rib down the barrel, as you can see, flange at the front, and a sort of rib partway down, bit of decoration as well. It's a little bit embellished design-wise in a way that doesn't add any functionality and isn't purely decorative. It's sort of self-consciously different. Effects-wise, the spread looks pretty massive on this. Now, it does have quite a short barrel. What we find in reality with shotguns is once the choke is either removed or cut off, don't try this at home, the length of barrel makes very little difference to the spread of shots in the scheme of things. It's not proportionate in any means to how much you cut the barrel down. Obviously, if you get too short, the pressure drops way low, the pellets may well spread out. I'm reminded of the hot horseshoes, hot dogs and hand grenades gun from the other week. Let's not dwell on that.
Loved using that weapon in BioShock, BioShock 2, and of course, BioShock Infinite. Personal favorite. Light them up! Yep, good. Can you imagine, like, all this is taking above in the sky, and, you're just some sort of simple farmer, just minding your business, or you're in a small town trying to get the newspaper or go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden you see this body just boom fall right in front of you, splat like all over, and you wonder, like, where did they come from? Because think about it, as you're fighting all these opponents, sometimes you knock an opponent off the ledge, and of course we live on this planet called Earth. We have a thing called gravity. And gravity always wins. It always wins.
We're on the rail transport system, and so one hand is taken up, and we're doing a bit of a riff on the T2 / John Wayne flip cocking, but we're just flipping the gun forwards and then back into the hand. So we're not doing the very stylish full sweep. Now, that's actually quite interesting, because if you don't have the large loop that allows it to rotate around your knuckles without breaking your fingers, and you absolutely had to try and cock it with one hand, then that might well be how you do it, because you could use the mass of the gun to flip itself forward and then flick it back into your hand. I don't particularly want to try that. I don't recommend that you do.
No, don't.
In a life or death situation.
Seriously, I don't want. I don't want to see anybody try and do that, and then they end up in Brandon Herrera's Darwin Awards. Okay, don't do that, please. No, nobody do that. That is the order. That is the high order from Chicago Reacts. Nobody do that, please. Don't do that. Do not. Capital N-O-T. Not.
Just might work.
Oh. They're dead.
Right. We have a revolver here. Another great choice for the setting. A sort of an old West style. Well, let's be honest. This is meant to be a Colt Navy percussion revolver. That's why it has these notches at the back of the cylinder. That's how it works. You put a cap on the back of each of these nipples in these cutouts, and that's your priming system. And then you load from the front of the cylinder your propellant and your bullet. Typically, historically, that was done with a paper or animal skin cartridge.
Wow.
Put that in place, position it under the rammer, ram it down, and then cap. Do that 6 times, or 5 times depending, and then add your caps. And then you've got your single action, i.e. cock and fire. Now,
very similar to that handgun, which we reacted that video from Brandon Herrera, where it wasn't a pistol, but no means underestimated. But it was of that similar design. I think I'm not the full on technical expert, but the way he's describing it sounds the same. Am I missing something? Please give us your feedback, because after all, without all of you, we would not be able to grow this channel up. So, for those gun enthusiasts out there, and those who've been following Chicago Reacts from the beginning, is this similar to what we saw with Brandon Herrera's weapon that he was showing? The video title is "This Is Not a Gun." Let me know. Let us know. Yes, we do read the comments, so let us know.
I've grabbed this one. This is an 1851 Navy model revolver. It's an early type with this enlarged oval-shaped trigger guard, which is a nod from me toward the really wacky trigger guard that's on this BioShock gun. Now, I didn't even remember that being on the gun, because in first person, you don't see it. It just looks more like a Colt Navy. Now, I think it's called a hand cannon, and it's implied to be, it feels meaty and powerful. Substantial differences, though.
Meaty and powerful. That's what she said.
So the sight that would normally be just a notch on the hammer has been much enlarged and located here. Now, we do have percussion revolvers that have sights mounted here, but this is not one of them. The barrel is hexagonal, I think, not octagonal, and it has a weird ejector rod housing under the barrel and is a cartridge revolver. We do have cartridge conversions of the Navy as well as others. They still don't look like this, and they would not preserve these cutouts in the cylinder that are left on this design quite consciously as again, a bit of visual interest. Doesn't quite make sense in terms of neither being fully cartridge nor is it a percussion, but it looks very cool and I still like it.
Easy for Troy. Ah, he got the bonus. Fine show. Fine show.
Hell of a shoot. There you go.
Okay, this is a slightly out of proportion M1 carbine with some metal plates riveted to it. Not too wildly different than the real M1 carbine. It's just that the buttstock is huge and really long, and the guy's got it under his arm, which is irking my brain. Well, maybe he doesn't know how to hold a gun. It's quite possible. His hand is also clipping through the...
Probably most likely, again. The creative team can only do so much. They all can do so much. We're only nitpicking here, but there you go.
The buttstock like it's meant to be a pistol grip. The magazine is also bigger than it ought to be. The front sight hood is immense and enclosed. Probably can't see on this one, but it shouldn't be. So what have I pulled out? Well, clearly this is not an ordinary M1 carbine either. This is a T4 experimental forerunner of the M2 carbine, which is the select fire version of the M1, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So
Again, just nitpicking here. I'm really liking his explanation of all the firearms and the weaponry and how they vary from the ones that we see in the games and the one that we see in real life. But I would have liked to have seen them in action. Now, I know people will write in the comment section below, well, gee, you could just go on YouTube and see it for yourself. And I probably will. But it would have been nice, a little addition to see it in this video, to see the actual weapons firing. Now, of course, I know that some of these weapons are a little bit older, and so again, there's malfunction and safety issues and technical issues that will come up. But it would be a nice thing to see. Am I wrong? Am I nitpicking here? I think I am. I think I am.
instead of the knob-shaped switch, it has this wedge-shaped selector switch here. And then even more interesting, it's actually fitted with spirit-level grenade sights that pivot to allow you to aim your rifle grenade. And then at the front, a grenade launcher. It's a spigot-type launcher that's just held on by, well, a spring clip, essentially. And it's got numbers for ranges, and it's set. You basically set it at the distance you want. So it's getting less powder burn or more powder burn, depending on where it's set. So that's 500 yards. That's 100 yards. So doubly unusual and even more wacky than BioShock gun.
So in other words, real life out trumps the fake reality world.
Now in first person view, we've got the true to at least some variants of the M1. Now I'm seeing the sight protectors. They're actually not enclosed, they're just huge.
Mm-hmm.
They are roughly of the right pattern. There's a very strange projection on the left side of the receiver. Doesn't seem to do anything. It almost looks like it's acting as a stop for the cocking handle, which wouldn't be needed. I don't know. It's there to look cool, I think.
What's this weapon again? Oh, yeah. This thingamajig.
So our second variant of this rifle, and incidentally, the cartridge cases coming out of this thing look about right for .30 carbine, even though the magazine looks significantly larger. Anyway, the important thing is this variant has a weird reflex sight with a sort of hand-drawn cross on the glass. Seems to be a bit of a fetish of video game firearms designers, scopes with hand-drawn reticles.
Why not? There's it has a nice little charm to it. A nice, beautiful charm to it.
Even though the rest of the sight is kind of properly made. Probably my only real criticism there. And it has a sort of barrel jacket. And that's because, like our T4 prototype I just showed you, this is, in fact, automatic. So it's a sort of extended range submachine gun, I guess. I really don't remember this from the game, but it was a long time ago that I played it. I'm gathering from this that it's actually burst. So it's mechanically controlled burst fire rather than just automatic. I also realized for the first time that the weird projection on the left side of the receiver is on both sides, or at least it is on this. And it really does look like it's there to interface somehow with the cocking handle as it comes back, but I don't know why.
When you want the job done from a distance.
This is quite a generic bolt-action rifle. Mauser action, I think we can safely say that. Brings to mind the 1903 Springfield. Maybe it's just the America in the sky sort of setting. The front sight and barrel setup almost looks like 1917 Enfield. The cocking piece at the back reminds me of the Arasaka, so I'd say it's a non-specific bolt-action rifle. It's taking advantage of the Mauser-style receiver to mount a scope over the bore, which looks completely normal, really. The scope itself is a bit stylized with needless brass bits on it, and it functions basically like we'd expect as a scoped rifle, slow rate of fire, high damage. If I had any criticism of it in a sort of real world sense, the scope seems very high. It might be the perspective that makes it seem very high over the bore, because I don't think you could mount it much lower.
Whoa, he just wow. Wow, that guy just took that pot shot to the head like a champ. First one, hold on. Here.
It might be the perspective that makes it seem very high over the bore.
Boom, right there. In the head.
I don't think you could mount it much lower on the weapon, but
Second shot.
relative to the buttstock, it seems quite high up, so it'd be hard to. You kind of want a cheek piece. I think the stock has a cheek piece to bring your head up into the eye box of the scope. I also didn't seem to have proper feed lips and distinct modelled cartridges in there, but the game is a few years old now.
All right, come on. Come on, Elizabeth. Get him.
Now, this is a bit of.
By the way, what was your favorite part playing BioShock Infinite? I think for myself, it's easy to say when you're in, Rapture. Now, of course, there's Columbia. There's so many things there to see. I liked it when Booker was in the History Museum, or at least what was perceived. No. My favorite part of the game in BioShock Infinite was when the riots were happening, and we hear we have a moment of peace where I guess an NPC was singing. Yeah. It Ain't Me. There we go. That was the song. It skipped my mind for a second, but yeah. I like that part. I like that part of the game. That's just my favorite part.
This reminds me of Team Fortress or something, where the mechanism and the reload is just sort of hand waved, and you just open it up, shove something in, close it as your reload. I like the look of it and the way it functions in the game. I also like the whistle of the bombs or grenades or whatever they are as they fly through the air. It reminds me of the whiz bang shells from the First World War or something. So it's a not a very realistic gun, but still a good gun.
Who's sneaking around?
And as
They just walked right into that. I shouldn't laugh at that, but it's funny. Who cares?
with a lot of the other weapons, there's an alternative faction version. In this case, mainly differentiated by having some pointless strips of red fabric wrapped around the barrels. But the overall design is less ornate. In fact, the variant guns have completely different skins. They don't change the silhouette, but they do change the design in basically every detail.
Beautiful.
Another gun with a great artistic design that doesn't make a huge amount of mechanical sense. The overall design is obviously a Gatling gun, but man-portable, which wasn't really a thing. It's sort of
No, you could not make a 1900s version of Old Painless. If you ever want to see Old Painless in action, watch Jesse the Body Ventura carrying that beautiful, beautiful machine in the fantastic film called Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Old Painless. Old Painless. Or, hey, you could use Old Painless in the Turok Dinosaur Hunter for the Nintendo 64. Shout out to the initiated who know what I'm talking about.
excessively clockwork with the toothed cogs. The breech, I think it's meant to be the breech, is clearly where the rounds are feeding into, somehow firing. The real Gatling has a solid drum of steel, of metal, with bolts that reciprocate on cam tracks back and forth, and each one is in a slightly different position as the drum rotates. One of them is in the forward locked position, and it's tripped and fires, and then the next one hits that, and then the next one hits that, and the next one hits that. It's like an angle of bolts. Look it up, it's really fascinating. So suffice to say, this doesn't seem to work that way at all. We have what looks like spindles or plungers that are in line with each of the barrels, the breeches of the barrels, but they don't move. They don't do anything. It's got ammo coming in, ammo coming out, but the whole bit in the middle is just sort of glossed over. Not uncommon, certainly not for a fantasy setting. There's also a noticeable spool up, which is, now that's the case with electric Gatling guns to do with how they feed. With a hand cranked Gatling gun, as soon as you trip that first barrel and bolt arrangement, fire a shot. Well, yeah, as soon as that hits the firing position, it fires. So yeah, there's going to be a slight delay, but I think they're mirroring the spool up of an electric Gatling gun with a hand crank, when I don't think it would be so noticeable. But it's still a nit. It's still very much a nitpick. Okay, and this is maybe the most curious weapon in the game. It's a rocket launcher of sorts with a hand-cranked feed mechanism of some kind. I'm not really sure how it's supposed to work, but I guess the idea is it gives you a...
And it's quite clear. There's no, especially with the hand-cranked minigun and this one too, and a few of the others that came before that, the other two as well. There is no real-life counterpart. Wait, bird's eye sniper. Okay, so the pig flak volley gun, the hailfire, the pepper mill crank gun, and of course the RPG. They come down later on down the road. They weren't around during the 1900s.
Rate of fire without showing a manual reload, which they show for the grenade launcher, albeit you get multiple shots out of that before you have to do it. Yeah, it's not the usual arrangement of grenade launcher, rocket launcher. It's its own thing. It must be the biggest departure from reality in the whole game, though, given that the typical rocket launcher is a simple tube open at both ends with some sort of firing mechanism, and this is vastly complicated, but no more so than other games that we've looked at. Those were the guns of BioShock Infinite, and I know this is heresy, but it's the only BioShock game that I have actually played, so I will fix that at some point, I promise. Meantime, check out our social media accounts over at Royal Armouries via the website, or however you'd like to do it, and you can of course visit us in real life and see some pretty cool BioShock Infinite-y firearms on display in our First World War gallery, where we have a case of experimental stuff. So hope to see you there, and if not, we'll see you here next week.
Sounds like fun. All right. A lot to unpack here. Okay, so what are your thoughts looking back at BioShock Infinite? Do you still reminisce and play it occasionally here and there, especially BioShock 1 and 2? Do you want to go back and adventure in Rapture or fight in the skies of Columbia? Do you feel that there should ever be another BioShock game? Is it something that maybe the people want? Because I've always had a idea, and it's nothing new, because I'm pretty sure millions of other people came up with the same idea. But maybe a BioShock set in the 1980s on a moon base. You know? Kind of get that retro 80s science fiction feel to it. I don't know. Just that's where I would set it up there. You know, have a whole lot of 1980s horror, science fiction, you know, all the classic tropes that you saw from classic B movies from the 1980s, or even from the good ones too. A lot of horror, sci-fi elements. That's where I would put the next BioShock, in space, on the moon, set in the 1980s with retro 80s themes and everything else. So that's what I would do. That's what I would have done. But what are your thoughts on also some of the weapons brought up? Would you, and obviously, would you have liked to see maybe the real life variants, maybe some clips or videos of them being fired? Maybe that's me nitpicking here, but my personal favorite is the shotgun. The shotgun's just close to my heart. So what are your favorite weapons? And also, what are your favorite moments in BioShock Infinite? Again, mine is with the riots happening, and we hear a version of "It Ain't Me." So, give us your thoughts. I really like this game, this narration and this explanation. It had a very calming feel to it. A calming feel, but also you learned something too. And that's what we here at Chicago Reacts always approve of. And as always, please support the original content creators. That link is in the description box below. Until then, folks, peace out, and I'll see you in the skies or in the ocean. But right now I'm playing a lot of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So, yeah, that game, very addicting. Peace out.